My name is Andre Ayala and I'm from Connecticut. Oh my gosh. My name is Andres Ayala and I am from Connecticut. I currently lead men's.
My name is Arthur Lawrence. I'm from Illinois, and I lead Genesis, which is a small group for freshman students.
My name is Sherry, and I lead Beloved, which is the women's small group.
My full name is Anu Luapa Naomi Fetokumba Bamidele, but I go by Anu for short. I lead Genesis, which is a small group for freshman students here at UT.
I am Daniela Swaznavar, and I lead a multicultural Bible study.
My name is Alexander. I'm from the Bahamas. I lead Black Campus Ministries, BCM, and also Jubilee, which is a small group for Caribbean students.
I am Adrian. My Bible study is the Bible study that I co-lead is for athletes, sometimes referred to as ABS, Athletic Bible Study.
My name is Joseph Alfio Ferraro, and I lead Home, which is a small group for LGBTQ++ students.
My name's Sam Lee, and I am from just right outside of Chicago, like 20 minutes from the city, from this small place called Morton Grove.
I grew up in the suburbs of Atlanta. I have a brother and a mom and a dad. Surprise! I grew up playing sports. I was very active. My parents were like super awesome. A lot of weekends at taekwondo matches and basketball tournaments and dance recitals. That's all between me and my brother. I grew up in the church. My mom made it a point to take us to church. So I grew up in typical Black church, United Methodist denomination. I don't cling to that very heavily, but it did influence how I grew up. I went to church as long as I could remember. And then when I was about 12, I started taking it more seriously than just a chore.
I am Guatemalan. I was born in Quetzaltenango, Guatemala. I was brought to the U.S. when I was 1 year old. It was about a month after my first birthday. It was around for Father's Day. We moved to California, LA, for a little bit, for a few years. And then we eventually made our way to New Jersey. And now I go to school here in Florida. I was actually raised Catholic. I was an altar server from the age of 7 to 18. Yeah, right before coming to college. It taught me a lot. It taught me a lot about God. My parents are very, very faithful, very religious, and they love God a lot. And I think that's probably where it started for me, maybe a little bit.
My mom grew up in a Catholic school, but she kind of fell away. I mean, we would celebrate Christmas. That was probably it. I went to Sunday school, I think, when I was little, but I don't remember much of it. I just remember coloring pictures of Moses. And that was about it for my church life. My dad was really anti-religious. He just he would always tell me, oh, religion starts wars and stay away from religion. And when I would ask him about Jesus, because my mom said that she loved Jesus. So when I would ask him about it, he would just tell me, oh, what kind of God says that he loves us, but he'll send his children to hell? And so from then I just kind of saw God as this scary dude. And I was really just scared of religion for a while. And I don't know, Christians seemed like the majority, and so I was maybe I should, but I didn't believe it. I just couldn't. And so I just kind of stayed away from religion. I wasn't baptized or anything as a child because my parents wanted me to choose.
Very small church. I would say less than 100 probably. And my parents are very involved in the church. They co-lead the youth ministry, and they're ministers and whatever. They speak at the church and stuff. Been pretty grounded, I would say. My parents were very helicopter parents, I would say, but in a good way. I mean, I wouldn't take it any other way. Yeah, I could talk to my parents about things, maybe not really deep stuff, but they can hear me out and stuff if I have something to say.
The elementary school years were great. I liked that. The middle school years were real rough, and the high school years were also pretty rough. Middle school was better than high school. They were both rough. I think it was just hard to hold on to faith in a lot of those times. And I think that there was a big disconnect from me and my family. All the things made it hard. I am attracted to men in a not gay affirming family. I was very lonely. I was very desperate for love and affection, but not from God and not from my family either. And so I was seeking that in people who were not good for me.
I did grow up Christian. So as I was a kid, my parents drank a lot and they were, Christians, but my dad, I saw him drunk a lot and they were fighting a lot. I'm an only child and an accident child. And my parents had to give up, their dreams and stuff and had to work to take care of me, especially as immigrants in America. And that made it tough for them. And so my whole life, my whole childhood, I should say, was kind of rough. I was physically abused by my mom, and my dad was like an alcoholic. In that sense, I had lost a lot of hope. So I didn't really know what loving Jesus was, but I sought faith in the church and faith in those people because I had no siblings, and nor did I have any other family in America. It's just me and my parents, whom I didn't like.
I grew up in a Christian family, so if you had asked me when I was 10 if I was Christian, I would have said yes, but I didn't really care about it, or it didn't really impact the decisions I made till I was a little older. When I was older, well, first I transferred schools. I lived in New Hampshire, 603, and then I moved to Nigeria, which is a country in West Africa, and I went to an all-girls Anglican boarding school that was very, very intense. I like to tell people that it was like Orange is the New Black, but in Africa. And I just really needed God. I needed like comfort and peace in a way that I hadn't before, so that's when I started caring more about the Bible, or like actually letting it influence the choices I made. When I was in Nigeria, a lot of things made me feel like my life didn't matter. But in America, a lot of things have also made me feel like my life doesn't matter. So in those ways, they're similar, but it's like the execution. Like my dad is like a politician, so in the end, I was always fine. But like normal people, sometimes they don't know if, there's going to be a terrorist attack. They don't know if they're going to have enough food. Little things like that don't really bother me, and realizing that like I was really privileged. So like I'm a black woman in America, so I wouldn't be considered privileged, but over there, like I really, really was. So just seeing the difference in that.
My parents were never married. I was born, my parents were just dating at the time. My parents split up when I was 3. My dad is this like super ambitious, like go after your goals, and like everything is set a certain way. And my mom's just kind of like, let Jesus do whatever Jesus is gonna do. So that's always really hard. It's really hard in making decisions. It's really hard in choosing how I'm gonna live my life. My dad had money. My dad only had to take care of me. I was an only child. My mom has 8 kids. So there was always this struggle. With my dad, I was super privileged. I got whatever I wanted. All I had to do was ask for it. I usually had to work a little bit for it, but I got it. And with my mom, it was like, yeah, I don't know if we have the money for that. With my dad, I went out for steak dinners. With my mom, at the age of 16, I was still eating off the kids' menu at restaurants to save money. My dad was Catholic. My mom had grown up Pentecostal. By the time I was born, she was a non-denominational Christian. And when I was born, my dad had asked my mom if she could teach me his faith. So I grew up Catholic. I got up to my confirmation, and then that is when I started to go to a non-denominational church, and that is when I fully gave my life to Jesus.
Time in my life that my life changed. I would say probably the time when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I feel like it's pretty self-explanatory in like just like a physical regard that your life would change, that your life would be different. But I mean, I guess also in like kind of a spiritual sense, it kind of caused me to like, I don't know, view God in a different way, and just kind of like, well, yeah, and just I've had to like grow. It's caused me to grow closer to God too. I think just the whole process of like going through that and having to like accept my new life has I don't know, just allowed me to grow closer to Jesus, because I feel like, I mean, if I didn't go closer to Jesus through that, like how would have I gotten through it? Like I don't think I would have been able to, you know what I'm saying?
My freshman year of college, so last year, specifically the first semester, I grew like in my faith so much, like probably because like that was the first time I had like been around like a bunch of Christians that like wanted to grow in their faith, because growing up I was really just around like people that were like, I'm Christian and this is that, and like But people that like being around people that really were like, I'm a Christian, like I want to know Jesus like more, really like catapulted my like need or like want to know him more. So I think like just like that first semester, like those 4 months, like I grew like tremendously, like in like a, I don't know, in like a crazy way. It was like amazing.
In high school, I was dating this guy and he brought me to church actually. At first I was just going because I was his girlfriend and he wanted me to go, so I was like, okay. But I think there was something that kept bringing me back to church every Sunday that was more than just like my boyfriend at the time. I was also just in a really dark place at that time. It was like sophomore year of high school. There was just a lot of changes in my life. I think I was figuring out who I was. Just kind of in the midst of that, I didn't find Jesus. Jesus found me because I wanted to believe it, but I just couldn't. And so I just like prayed that whatever God wanted to do in my heart that he would. And I kind of just like relinquished that power. And after that, like Jesus like saved me.
When I was a sophomore in high school, I was in probably the depth, I guess, of my depression. It was this crazy year where my family, like, I already felt like my family was falling apart because my oldest brother was going through this whole fiasco about everything, and he left us all. And my youngest brother, who's adopted, in the first semester, had to leave and go back with his old family. And he was with us since I was in second grade or third grade, I think. I loved him like very much. And when he left, it was like, I guess it was this final, like, my family is just like done. There's no fixing this. And that just threw me overboard. I didn't attempt suicide ever, but I used to cry myself to sleep thinking about it. Actually, well, I would cry myself to sleep, and then suicide was what helped me stop crying because it comforted me, actually. My relationship with my family is getting better. For the past few years, we've been like mending that, I guess, and reconciling that. When I like split off from my family and I could have faith that was like completely independent of them, it didn't rely on like my parents are going to church, so I'm going. It was my decision, I guess, and I think that was super significant to growth, like spiritual growth.
Around like ninth grade, bullying got a little harder than I could take on myself, kind of. So I just kind of fell into that. Not fell into it, but kind of like, I looked to Jesus more at that time because I was like, I need something that I don't have in me, you know? I looked to him a lot, but it was definitely not, still a very shallow, like, type of faith, I would say, because I needed him, you know? It's like very like, I just need you, so I know you're there for me, that kind of thing.
It's really hard when you have one parent who supports a change that you're making, and you have another parent who doesn't understand, who kind of feels betrayed in a way that like you're choosing one parent's religion over my religion. So yeah, it was really hard. I remember coming home the night that I decided to follow Jesus and telling my dad that I didn't want to be Catholic anymore, and my dad saying to me, you're too young to make that decision. At that point, I was 14. Didn't think that I was actually that young. And yeah, I just remember conversation after conversation.
I remember looking around the room at a bunch of college kids just like worshiping, like giving it their everything. And something inside of me just did like a turn, it just flipped completely. And I was like, I knew from that day exactly that I was just like not gonna be the same. That like God was like actually real, and God was like in my favor.
Daniela Swaznavar. She's, I met her only a few months ago, and she's been great because actually she's given me this type of like motherly love that I didn't get from my actual mother. And it's like really crazy because she's only a few years older than me, but like just receiving love in that way. And she's like the first person that cried for me, and that did something to me. And like the way she speaks and just things like that. She's really impacted my life.
My best friend, Alex, that I've known since 6th grade. Yeah, the reason he's been an influence in my life is just because, like, just having, like, a good and close Christian friend throughout, like, middle school and high school and now into college has been really beneficial. Yeah, just, it's given me someone to, like, learn from and just, like, see how, like, they live their life and, like, and also someone to, like, see their mistakes too, and, like, just, like, growing alongside him together has really made me into a better person.
So my dad was a high school teacher when I was growing up. My dad got really close to this student. He got really close with my dad, and my dad kind of, like, took him underneath his wing. And then he became my babysitter, and he was actually a youth pastor. So yeah, I'm just so thankful to have that friendship. He passed away because he knew my dad well. He was a big buffer between my dad. I had an older brother, but at the time my older brother wasn't really present in my life, and he just, like, really took care of me.
William Armstead took me and my family in when I was in 1st grade, when my dad left us, like, stranded basically in this small little apartment complex in the middle of a new city that we didn't know anything about. He lived next door to us, and he took us to church. He used to give us dinner. He's kind of the reason I know Jesus, I think. And he married my mom eventually, and he took care of us. And everything that he could have gave to his 3 young black daughters, he gave to me and my brothers. I don't know why. And that was never a thing either. It was never like a racial thing. There was never anything between us as far as that goes. He only wanted to, like, give to us and be with us. I don't know how that's possible, but he's the most gracious person I've ever met in my life.
My grandma has made a huge impact on my life. She loves me more than anyone in this entire world. Like, she just relentlessly loves me. She was really the first example of, like, what does grace look like? Because especially when I started getting into, like, middle school, like, I was just ruthless, and I just, like, did not treat her with respect, and I really took advantage of, like, how much she loved me, and she, like, just constantly gave me love. She's been through stuff, like, in her life, and it's no question that God is in her heart in that way, and He's given her that gift and given me that gift, and that's just made a huge impact on what I think of when I think of love and the concept of love.
I think my thing was always, like, yeah, I believe in God, but does he actually love me?
I'm a Christian, but I'm not, like, the judgmental person to condemn everything that you do.
I'm still struggling with, like, the idea. When it comes to, like, being called a man, like, I still struggle with, like, I don't see myself as, like, a man still.
I'm a Christian, but I'm still human, and I still hurt, and I still make mistakes, and if not hurting more than I did before.
I'm Christian, but I don't think that the government should base all its decisions off of my Christian biblical views.
If people knew how angry I was as a person, if people knew how, judgmental I used to be and still kind of am right now, I struggle with that. And if people knew, like, my lust, I think there's a lot.
Well, I'm a very, like, rebellious person, I think.
I'm Christian, but I'm attracted to men.
I didn't think that I needed anyone. It's even after I met Jesus and I was like, He's all I need, which is true. We can survive and we can thrive with Jesus alone. But God puts people in our lives, and there's something that can be taken away from every person I meet. And I think even now I'm struggling with letting people into my heart and letting people into my life. And we talk about vulnerability, and we talk about being open with your struggles and with every part of yourself. For a long time, because I was alone, that I figured that was the best way to cope with things. Or I thought that being open in that way, they're not going to love you the same. I want to love in the best way that I can, but that includes letting myself be loved and letting other people like serve me and be there for me in that way too. And so I think that relationships and just cherishing the people that God has given me has been a huge part of my life and a huge part of my identity, actually. I think that the people around me have helped me figure out who I actually am and who I'm supposed to be.